So it's really hard to talk. Like, I've been wanting to talk about it for so long, but nobody gets it.
Oh yeah, we could talk about it forever personally as well, because we love it. And other Chris, who is a co-host, we all are ridiculous. We could talk forever.
Yeah.
It's just the most
My wife and
exciting.
we've been talking about it for 2 weeks. We've been back. So
Oh, that's so great.
Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you and your family cruise a little smarter. And I'd like to welcome to the show, all the way from the snowy fields of Michigan, Christy from Pack Your Pixie Dust. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Not too bad. Snowing up in Michigan, but you're heading to Disney again.
I am. I'm very excited. It was a balmy, 45 degrees this afternoon.
Really?
We didn't even know what to do with ourselves.
Yeah. Well, before you head south to Disney again, which I think that, I was joking. I did a recording yesterday with the Towlers, and they always stay on deck 8, and I was kind of joking with them that I'm going to walk along deck 8 of the Magic, and I'm going to see their name tag imprinted on one of the on one of the staterooms. I think that I'm going to go down to Disney and just be walking through a couple of the different resorts down there and see the Puttick name as well on a bunch of the doors.
Yeah, I support that fully.
Yeah. Well, before you head south, let's go north to the Great White North, Canada, in particular, Vancouver Island, one of the most beautiful places in the world.
Sounds really cold.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. And welcome to the show, Chris. How you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, Christy.
Thank you so much for coming on. And I think this is the first time we've had somebody from Vancouver Island outside of Victoria, and the beautiful Wonder stops in Victoria. We're going to have you come on and kind of give some feedback on your city and some things to do at some point, Chris. But we'll do that on a different episode. Would you be up for that?
Yeah, I'd love to do that for sure.
Awesome. Well, before we jump into it, let's talk about your cruise. You sailed out of San Diego, 7 days down to Mexico on the beautiful Disney Wonder. Talk to us a little bit about your family and your Disney background. What do you guys do? Did you guys go to the parks first? How did you find Disney Cruise Line?
All right. So I'll start with the last question first. So I found out about Disney Cruise Line in a really strange way. So maybe 10 years ago or so, I was walking along the pier in Victoria. It's called the Breakwater. And it's where all the cruise ships come in. And the Wonder comes to Victoria, I think, once a year. And I just happened to be out at the end of the Breakwater at the very moment that the Wonder was sailing by. And it looked so much different from all the other ships that I've ever seen come into port. Everyone just looked like they were having the time of their lives. And the ship was so amazing. And I just thought, man, I'd love to be on that thing one day. And I didn't think of it since. I have a few pictures that actually I found that I took when I was out there. But when we started getting really heavily into going to the parks, we were sort of looking for a vacation that gave us the Disney experience without the hecticness of the parks, I guess you'd call it. So I started listening to the cruise wasn't really on my radar for a long time. I started listening to your podcast, a few other podcasts, and doing some research in it. We sort of decided that would be a good option for us to get sort of basically a floating park without a lot of the hassle that comes with going to the parks, if you can call it that. My Disney experience started a while ago with a few trips to Tokyo Disneyland and Disney Sea. Oh. So I've been there a number of times and loved it, but that was before I was a Disney fan. I love the parks because they were just so beautiful and so unique. And as a surprise for my wife for our anniversary, I booked a trip to Disneyland for myself, her, and our son, who was 8 at the time. And just happened to coincide with the diamond anniversary of Disneyland's celebration. And we were hooked from there. We had such a great time. So we've been back to Disneyland a couple times. We try to alternate between my wife and I doing an adult trip and then taking our son. So we try to do 2 trips a year. And last year we went to Disney World for the first time. We had a really, really good time. The heat in Florida killed us though. So we prefer going to California. It's a lot closer for us, and we find the climate a little bit better for us coming from Canada, where it can be cold, and going to, the humidity of Florida is really hard on us. Time change is hard on us too. So Disney Cruise was sort of like the evolution. It was either Aulani or Disney Cruise. That was kind of like the evolution for us to be able to have a family vacation that was a bit more relaxing while still getting the things about Disney we love. And for me, that's some of the things that you can't describe to people that don't get Disney. Things like the music, the service, the food, the little Disney touches, the theming and stuff like that. And we got that tons on the ship without some of the things that, like the pace of going to a Disney park. So that was sort of how the cruise came about for us. It turned out that we got a Halloween on the High Seas cruise just because of the itinerary that we were taking and when we were going. So that's basically how we came to get to the cruise. We ended up we flew into LAX and went to the Halloween party the first night we arrived. We had a day in Disneyland the second day. And then the third day, we took the train down to San Diego. We got to San Diego a day early just because we weren't sure what we were going to experience. And we wanted to be there without being stressed out.
Well, Chris, before we actually jump into the cruise itself, let's talk about that train, because I know that's a great way to get from the Los Angeles area or even just the West Coast all the way into San Diego. How did that work and where did you pick it up?
How the train was supposed to work and how it actually worked was quite different for us, and it was just because of timing. So what we initially booked was so that's the Surfliner that goes. We were picking it up in Anaheim at the Anaheim Transportation Hub, and we had booked a business class trip from Anaheim to San Diego downtown, and then our hotel shuttle was to pick us up. I just had to call them and let them know we were there, and they were going to come and grab us because we were going to Disneyland, the Halloween party, the cruise, and also we had a couple days in San Diego at the end, which maybe we can talk about later. We had a lot of luggage. And so we had 2 sets of Halloween costumes. We were prepped for it being really hot in LA and it being, not as hot at sea on the ship. We weren't really sure. So we had tons of luggage. And so we had booked business class. They were supposed to handle our luggage at the terminal. They were loading it onto the train, and then we had reserved seats. The day before we were supposed to get on the train, Amtrak called me and said that they were doing track maintenance from Irvine to San Diego. So we would have a 21-minute trip on the train, and then we'd be transferred to a bus to San Diego. A couple of problems with that were because they were terminating at Irvine, they didn't offer business class. So they refunded our business class, but we had to just sort of find seats and find spaces for our luggage. And we weren't prepared for that because there was no room it was really hard to find room especially with all of us having as much luggage as we did. And the train was already pretty full. So we just kind of had to dash onto the train and shove our luggage in wherever it would fit. And then we kind of did a combination of sitting and standing because there was no seats together. And so it didn't work as well as it would have if it would have worked as like it was supposed to. The other problem we had was that the train station is 3 floors up and 3 floors down to get up to the concourse and down to the platform. So it was a lot of maneuvering, and they wouldn't check my luggage because we were no longer traveling business class. So the train and on the train, it was a wonderful experience. It was very short, aside from the fact that we didn't have seats we were kind of worried about our luggage. But the train itself was a really comfortable way to travel, and I could see the merits of taking the train. It's like an hour and 45 minutes from Anaheim to San Diego. And had our luggage been checked and we had our reserved seating, it would have been amazing because we had, there was drink service and there was snacks that were available. But because it didn't work out that way, it ended up being a lot more difficult for us because we had to get everything up and down. And then in Irvine, we had to get everything up and down and then onto buses. And they had dozens of buses because everyone was going different places. And the other thing was everyone got off the train at Irvine. So it was just a madhouse of people trying to get on the buses and make sure there were seats together. So that part of it, once we were on the bus, it was fine. The train would have been amazing. It just didn't turn out to be. And it was just really poor timing for us, unfortunately.
Not how somebody would probably experience it, but I guess people should know that this might exist.
And I would say that, provided the track maintenance thing wasn't an issue, it would be an absolutely ideal way, very relaxing, tons of room on the train. But just for us, it was just like the one weekend a year where they had the tracks closed to San Diego. And so it just, unfortunately, it just didn't quite work out for us. Ended up being more stressful than it would have been if we would have just boarded a bus initially. In Anaheim, if we would have just took a bus to San Diego, because the transferring between train to bus was part of the problem that was more difficult.
All the joys of traveling, huh? You never know what's coming at you.
No, it was really out of our control.
Yeah. Well, the train itself does stop right in downtown San Diego. Matter of fact, almost literally across the street. Well, it's not across the street. That's a little bit of an overstatement. But within a few blocks of where the Wonder leaves, although you guys had a day there before you departed on your cruise. Before we talk about the cruise itself, I really want to thank you for reaching out to us, Chris. One of the things that you used on board was special services because of your son. Do you want to talk about him a little bit before Christy talks about special services?
Sure. So my son is 12, and he is on the autism spectrum. The autism spectrum, there's a lot of it's a pretty broad spectrum for people. So autism can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. For us, he's affected mostly by environments that are stimulating. So lots where there's lots. Oh, yeah,
all of the crowded Disney places.
Yeah, exactly. Where there's lots going on, or where something is not like he likes to have a plan. We do well when we can tell him what's going to happen. So, okay, we're going to go to the train and we're going to get on the train and these are our seats and our luggage is going to go here and then we're going to sit down. Like that helps to mitigate those problems. So where we find that the biggest issues occur are where there is lots of noise, lots of people, lots of like lighting can be a problem. And how that manifests itself is that he gets sort of overwhelmed and the quality of his trip, like for instance, we use special services at the parks as well. We get a disability access pass. That makes a huge difference to our overall enjoyment at the parks because if we can take away some of that stimulation, his enjoyment goes up and he doesn't get as exhausted and he can enjoy what's going on around him quite a bit more than if he's overstimulated.
So, Christy, why don't you talk a little bit about special services, what special services provides through Disney Cruise Line?
They are the people that you would deal with before the cruise and then during the cruise if you had special needs of any type. So if you needed a scooter, for example, or a wheelchair, needed a handicap accessible cabin, you could talk to them if there was something specific that you needed from Disney, if you needed special food. So there are some people that have, and I don't mean regular dietary restrictions, but I mean they have a medical issue where they have to either drink a special protein drink or they have to eat for a variety of reasons a certain chicken nugget. And so Disney special services on land before the cruise will go and try to get the item for the passenger that they need to be able to enjoy their cruise because you can't bring your own food on. There isn't a public freezer that can be used by the guests. So Disney would have to order that. They also will do things that Chris is going to describe to lighten or to make it easier for those guests that might be on the autism spectrum. So they're just the people that you would deal with if there was very unique dietary needs. Otherwise, you'll just note it in the reservation. Or if you have a disability or other limitation that Disney needs to know about in advance, either to help assist you during the cruise or if there's something special you need.
And Chris, how did that work for you guys as far as working with them ahead of time? So I'm assuming you called them and talked to them. What were some of the things that they provided you before the cruise?
Yeah, so I knew they existed, but I didn't really know what they could do. So when I called, you're right, I called them about 4 months out. The first thing was just I didn't know what they could do. So I was chatting with him about what they could do. And then he kind of came up with a plan. So when I called, I got a fellow named Chris, which was wonderful. And I sort of explained to him when I called, we have some special needs and I don't even know what you can do. So first thing he did was ask me what the special needs were. They have a specific plan in place, or they have specifics for people traveling with autism in particular. And then for other, more specific needs. So he was able to determine, first of all, what our needs were. I went over in great detail what, the kinds of problems that we encountered or the things that we found to be successful. I explained to him that at Disney parks, we had taken some steps to increase our enjoyment. And he basically then just went through like sort of activity by activity, started with embarkation, talked about boarding, he talked about security. Like he just went through step by step. I was probably on the phone with him for an hour and a half, step by step about what they could do or what we could do to mitigate any kind of problems that we might have. He put a whole bunch of notes on our file and then forwarded any information that they needed on the ship to the ship so that they knew what to expect when we were getting on. But he basically started with embarkation and ended with debarkation and everything in between. And the nice thing was that because there was so much information, he followed up with an email, which was really, really long, that basically detailed everything we talked about, so I could reference that.
So they really kind of set you up for success, it sounds like, to begin with. Can you go over any of the specifics or some of the specifics that helped you guys on this cruise? And you don't have to get through everything, but do you have a couple that you could share with our audience?
Yeah, sure. So some of the most hectic, as you guys know, and anyone who's cruised knows, some of the most hectic parts of a cruise are just the, that the whole boarding thing, the getting through security, getting your boarding group, getting on the ship. So he told us that the later we boarded, usually the less hectic it was. So he suggested that we board after 1:30. He said that we should be able to walk onto the ship at that point, and he was right. The other thing that was really important for us was seating at dinner. So my brother and my son both would benefit from not being seated with other people and also sort of away from the higher traffic area. So he suggested that he could put us at a private table with the four of us. And they also put us sort of back in the corner of the room where there wasn't a lot of people going by. That helped a ton. That made a really big difference. The other thing that was really helpful was around the muster drill. So with someone who is really prone to being oversensitive to stimulation, the whole assembly and the alarm that they sound, and just the whole sort of thing around muster and emergency services was a bit difficult. So what he told me was that I could attend the muster drill on behalf of my family. They could watch it on the TV, and that made a pretty big difference to, getting that part of it done. What was interesting was what I thought was supposed to happen was that I was to attend our assembly station, let them know. They knew ahead of time that the rest of our cabin wasn't coming. But interestingly enough, the next day when we woke up, we had a note stuck in our fish extender that said that we had missed the muster drill and we needed to do a makeup that morning at guest services. And that kind of surprised me because I thought that had been dealt with. Everybody that I talked to at the assembly station, like our assembly leader and stuff like that, were aware that they weren't attending because of special service. There was a special services note on the file, but we basically got like a little reprimand letter saying, hey, you weren't at the muster drill, so you need to show up at guest services at 11, be there, be square.
What did you do about that?
We showed up at 11 because it was not reprimanding, but it was not just like, hey, if you want to come. It was sort of like, you're going to be here at 11 and that's that. So the four of us went to guest services at 11 and a ship's officer was there. And I sort of said to him, like, I really thought that this was taken care of. Like on special services told me that I could attend on behalf of my family. He said, he said, you're right. He said, but it's really important to us that everybody kind of gets understands what's going on. So he basically went over with the four of us almost in private the details of the muster from the day before, which actually worked out really well for us because we didn't have to worry about the alarm sounding, and it was sort of like almost like a private lesson on how to put your life vest on and stuff like that. So it worked out well, but it sort of surprised me that they made a big deal out of it when they told us ahead of time that they didn't have to attend.
Steve, I don't know if you remember when Dave had that medical issue, which just for our listeners, we recorded a whole episode about it and it got lost. I mean, it got damaged or something. It didn't work, so it never got released. But my husband had a medical issue before a cruise and we had to go to the hospital, which ended up being fine. We made the cruise, but we missed the muster station because we got back to the ship, like as the muster stations were going on and had to get then checked out by the doctors again one more time, blah, blah, blah. So we went and Dave went and did a private muster station that they said was sufficient for our entire cabin. And then, because I don't remember, like I had to unpack or something, I don't remember why I didn't go. But then we got like 4 phone calls, like at various times. We got letters, we got phone calls, but they approved it. And so finally, at that time, we were concierge, and I just took it to them and I said, could you please deal with this? Because they keep calling, but they said we were done and that we've mustered. So I don't know why we're still getting calls. Even like Dave said, you need to come. He goes, I was there. The security officer did a muster station with me. So I think the departments aren't speaking to one another.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened to me, because they said that we weren't there, but I was there, and they had their little iPad, and she made notes, like she checked us in. So when I talked to him about it, he was really good about it the next day, and he said, if you couldn't have come, that would have been okay. We just he sort of let me. It was his way of saying it was really important that everybody that could do it, and frankly, for us, the issue wasn't with the muster drill, so we could. We ended up, that was the best way for us to have done it anyways. And I think Disney just felt comfortable knowing that they had shown all 4 of us how to put on our life vests and what to do in the case of an emergency. But it appeared to me that you're right. The department that sent us the letter and the department that we met with to go over the muster probably didn't talk to each other, because I said, we got this letter this morning and we thought we better come. And he kind of sort of said, well, it's nice that you came, but it wasn't really necessary.
Well,
so there was a little bit of a mix. I think a little bit of a mix-up there.
Yeah, it sounds like the left hand's not talking to the right hand very well.
Right. Just a few other really quick notes that I've got. The character meetings, he said that one family member could wait in line while the other ones did other things on the ship, and then they could just sort of cut in right towards the end. They also said that there was cast members out in front of the theaters 30 minutes before the show, so we could go talk to them about, needing to have a spot that was easy to access from the aisles or away from, feeling closed in was going to be a problem for us. So they could help us to find a good spot. They weren't going to save spots or anything like that, but they would help us ahead of time. And also same with things like the slides or the pool. They said, we can't do anything about giving you priority access to the water slide or to anything like that. But they said, if you come early or late, there's less people. And so you'll have a chance to get on.
So lots of good things, or lots of good advice to be able to experience this ship around.
Absolutely.
So one quick question before we start talk about the actual, some of your experiences on the cruise. Was there somebody on board then that you could contact that represented special services if you needed anything during the whole cruise, or did you just go to guest relations up front?
Basically, what he said was that because we were on a fairly long cruise, he said by the second or third day, most of the people that we dealt with, we would be seeing, would already know us. And so if we had a specific issue, we could go to guest relations. But he said most of the cast members on the ship that we'd be interacting with would already be familiar with us. And it was true. Like after the first couple of things that we requested, they sort of got a feel for what we needed and anticipated it. So there wasn't a dedicated person, but they were pretty good about understanding or helping even before they got to know us, but it was less of a chore after we'd been on the ship for a day or two.
I think that's one of the things that Disney does so well is they really recognize you over the course of your cruise, and especially somebody that needs something like you guys do. And I know, Christy, you've had the same experiences where they really go out of their way to help you throughout that entire week. So that's good to hear that happened to you guys as well.
Yeah, that really translated well. Actually, the best place that translated was with our serving team. Our serving team was so good. I can't even describe how good they were, but that was one of the points where the rotational dining and the service team that follows you was such a huge help for us, because after the first night, he could anticipate anything that we needed, and we did not have to keep explaining over and over again what we needed or why we needed it. And that made the whole dining experience just amazing.
So let's go to the cruise itself. You saw the wonder there as you were walking along the seawall up in Victoria. Now you're getting on board in San Diego. What did you guys think of her as you got on board?
It's really funny because we were set to go down to the terminal around 12:30 or 1 o'clock. And when we woke up in San Diego that morning, someone had posted, my wife was a member of the Facebook group for our cruise, and someone had posted a picture of the Wonder in port. And we just got dressed and went down to the port to see it. We were just too excited. So we went and had a look and took some pictures and then came back and got our stuff and went down. It surprised me how big the ship looked just sitting there and you're standing next to it, and it's almost dizzying. We were so excited, and we were so, even with all the planning that we've done and all the videos I've watched and all the research that I've done, it still seemed so new and so exciting to me. So I still didn't really know what to expect. I knew they were going to announce our name, and I knew like the overall, but I didn't know the details, and it was really exciting to be able to get on the ship and figure that out.
What type of stateroom did you get? And were you all in one stateroom? There was 4 of you traveling, correct?
Yeah, there's 4 of us. So there was myself, my wife, my adult brother, and my son, who's 12. We could actually get we looked at a bunch of staterooms. We looked at something with a view. We looked at something with a veranda. We ended up choosing a deluxe inside stateroom. And the reason was because we really liked the layout of it. My wife and I liked the fact that the bed was against the inside wall. For my brother or son who may be coming later or who may be getting up during the night, I felt like we would be disturbed less. So that was the best layout for us. So I chose the inside, and because we hadn't cruised before, I didn't really have any point of reference. And it turned out we were aft as well. So we were in 2631. So we were on deck 2, and just aft of the aft elevators. It was the perfect location, and we really liked the stateroom. I didn't know that there was a curtain that closed, so that gave us a little bit of privacy to watch TV and stuff like that. So the stateroom was a great choice, and the layout was really good. Surprisingly, for 3 adults and a 12-year-old, we found there was a lot of room. We did not have a problem with not having room, and the split bathrooms, of course, which everybody raves about, was ideal.
Oh, perfect.
So I don't know if you guys knew this. I hadn't heard it on any of the podcasts, but I'm suspecting when it was in dry dock, which I didn't know the ship was in dry dock in Victoria, which is really cool, but they installed the Disney On Demand system in the staterooms.
Oh, right. So that's new.
I had heard that was only on the Dream and the Fantasy and not on the classic ships. But when I got on, there was the screen looked different from what I was expecting. And so we could watch anything on demand on the stateroom TV, which was a really nice surprise for us because we love watching Disney shows and movies.
Oh, that's good to know. We hadn't gotten a report back on that. So that's great.
So let's turn to the dining then. I'm glad that worked out well for you guys. You guys had your own table by yourself, and then obviously having the servers go with you, they kind of get to know you, everything that you need to really help you guys out. Chris, what were your thoughts of the different dining rooms and the food on board?
So my brother and my son are both gluten-free, and they're not they don't have celiac. It's not an allergy. It's a dietary preference for them. That was a note on our file, and our server knew that when we met him. We started in Triton's. Our first meal was incredible. They were really accommodating with the gluten-free part of it. In fact, what he did was at the end, because some of the things they can make gluten-free to order. So what our server would do was at the end of our meal, he would bring us the next night's menu and let the boys pick what they wanted, and then he would have it made gluten-free for them if it wasn't already gluten-free. So that was a really nice thing that they were able to do, because they did have a gluten-free item or 2 on the menu, but it wasn't always as appealing as some of the other stuff. So if my brother wanted prime rib that was made with a sauce that was not gluten-free, they would just, not make it. And it's not like they would just omit, which is the pretty common thing to do with gluten-free. They would remake or make something without gluten for them, which I thought was really, really nice. We started in Triton's, we went to Animator's Palette, and then Tiana's Place. All 3 restaurants were amazing. Tiana's Place was on my bucket list forever. Animator's Palette was incredible with the way that they did the shows. We really looked forward to dining. We did early dining, which was ideal. Some people have said it was really hard to get, but I didn't have a problem. And I think, frankly, if somebody needed early dining for some reason, like for us, it was helpful special services wise, and I'm sure that they could have made that work had it not been available to me anyways. But we really loved all 3 restaurants. I think my favorite was Tiana's Place. They were all incredible.
How did that work with your son as far as the music and everything else in Tiana's Place?
That part of it was fine. We were expecting the music, and we were expecting the Mardi Gras. He actually got up and danced with all the kids that danced over the front. But because we had a great table location wise, so that if we didn't want to be inundated with, people and stimulation. We didn't have to be. So it was nice because he could join in, but we weren't in a spot where we had to join in if we didn't want to, if that makes sense.
Yeah. He doesn't have to wear headphones, or do you have headphones for him?
No, he doesn't have to wear it. No, it's not. It's certainly not as severe as that. So as long as we can sort of not inundate him with too much being in the middle of a situation he can't control, the sound or the lights aren't as bad enough that it's going to cause him to have to wear headphones or have to excuse himself from the situation.
Well, that's great, because that music is absolutely the best.
Oh, it is the best. I mean, to hear those jazz renditions of some of those Disney songs was just, that just about teared me up.
Yeah.
Did you guys get a chance to experience and I'm totally drawing a blank, the new area outside? It used to be the Promenade Lounge, but now they've themed it. Yeah, how was that?
Yes, French Quarter Lounge. It was amazing. I didn't have anything to compare it to, but Princess and the Frog is my favorite Disney movie of all time. Mm-hmm. And so it was... it had that Disney touch. You could sit in a New Orleans streetcar. They had this little shadow of Dr. Facilier on the wall of the bricks by the bar. They had a railing along one wall with all the Mardi Gras beads hanging off of it. They had the best cafe au lait and beignets you could order. It was a really nice spot that was really comfortably adult oriented in the evening, but really fun for families in the daytime. They really hit that one out of the park as far as I'm concerned.
Could you get gluten-free beignets there?
Well, yes, they were special order. So like on the Tiana's Place menu that had beignets, they could do them gluten-free. My wife and I went to the French Quarter Lounge often for like a drink at night, and we didn't have to worry about it, but they would make gluten-free beignets if we wanted, and they actually really went out of their way to do as much gluten-free as they could everywhere on the ship.
I'm excited about that.
It's funny.
Steve, did I tell you I booked that cruise for midwinter break on the Wonder?
Did you? Awesome.
For 2021.
Awesome.
So yeah, I need to get back.
French Quarter Lounge was one of my favorite spots on the ship, and it was just so well done, and it was sort of just like sitting. It was exactly what I was hoping it would be, and it was lovely.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was great.
So what were some of the other things that you guys experienced around the ship before we talk about the port days? And I want to touch on the kids clubs, whether you actually were able to go in any of them at all. I know he would have been, set up for the Edge. There's not really, it's a pretty small space on there. But what were some of the things you experienced on the ship besides the dinners?
So I'll talk about kids clubs first. We registered him for Oceaneers Club and Oceaneers Lab because he's coming up on being 13. That was a little young for him. It was nice because they really asked a lot of questions as to what he could do. They were really aware of his dietary requirements, but he was all about Edge. Special Services told me that he was welcome to use the kids clubs, but in the teen clubs like Edge, they wouldn't be able to provide like a one-on-one service, which he doesn't need anyway. So he can manage that stuff himself. So we let him go to Edge. Sometimes we didn't see him till 12:30 or 1 in the morning. He was able to eat, and if they went, like the Edge group of kids, they kind of have the run of the ship. So they would go and have lunch or have a snack, and he was just able to get himself from Pinocchio's. They would make him a gluten-free pizza. Or if they went to Cabanas to grab a snack, he would ask them what was gluten-free on the Cabanas buffet and have that. So for him, where he didn't require additional support other than what he could provide himself, if it got too overwhelming, he could take a break. But for him, the kids club was awesome, and he just would say, I'm going to Edge, and he would disappear for hours at a time. So he loved Edge.
That's great.
The things like where they raid Vibe, or they would just go up there and hang out, and it was really nice for him to feel like he was grown up enough to be able to do stuff without having to check in with us all the time. And we encouraged him to go to Oceaneers, but it just felt a little young for him, especially after he had seen how kind of cool Edge was. So he really liked Edge a lot. A few of the other things we played trivia 3 times. We won twice.
What?
Which
I love it.
Uh-oh, Steve. Look at all these winners that are out there.
I know. That's awesome. I'm so happy for you guys.
Yeah, it was fun. So we got two sets of medals. Medals, they're not really metal, but they're. I mean, my wife has a lot of Disney movie knowledge, and I have a lot of Disney parks knowledge. So, and my son just knows a lot of just sort of random Disney facts. So between the three or four of us, we really had a good sort of knowledge of the kind of stuff they asked in trivia. So that was tons of fun, and we played a lot of bingo. Bingo was super fun.
Talk about the price for bingo. We don't talk about that very much.
Yeah, you know what? We didn't even really know there was bingo until one of the last podcasts I was listening to with, I don't remember, but somebody had said that they had won bingo like twice or three times in one cruise. And I was like, I didn't even know there was bingo on the ship. So we showed up to play bingo. They have sort of different themed bingo games, but it costs between $20 and $80 to play bingo, depending on how many cards you want to play. They have these electronic cards that just like do it for you, and you just have to watch them for when you. Yeah, it was amazing. So you could buy a family pack for like $80 that gave you 4 bingo cards plus 2 electronic cards, and electronic cards play 48 cards at a time.
Oh my.
So you have a good chance to win. The thing about bingo, it's really funny when I talk to my friends about going on the cruise, say like, oh, we did trivia and played bingo. They kind of think it sounds kind of dumb. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, but they made bingo so much fun. It was like a party. They danced on certain numbers and they made you stand up and they told jokes and they did raffles. So bingo, even though we didn't win and we tried really, really, really hard, we won a few raffles. So we got like a Disney Cruise Line lunch kit and a hat and some luggage tags. And they do stuff like one of the things I liked is that they encourage participation. So they were telling Halloween jokes and they were asking audience members to tell Halloween jokes. And I did. I had one at the ready, I guess. And so anyone who participated, they gave a Disney Cruise Line luggage tag to. So even though we didn't win, we still had such a great time that we actually went back over and over again. And they have a jackpot one, they have a rolling jackpot. They have one where they do more raffles than others. So it was a little bit expensive, especially for us with the exchange rate. So, a $20 game of bingo for us is like $35. So it's not cheap, but it was a lot of fun. And the potential to win, like if you won any one round, you would cover your cost plus maybe, it was somewhere in the $100 to $300 per game win. So you could win quite a bit. And then they had a $3,000 jackpot and a $10,000 jackpot. So if you were really lucky, you could win quite a bit of money.
I think that jackpot rolls over from cruise to cruise. It doesn't win, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So,
it was
Steve?
really up there.
No, we have not done that, but I love how you're describing it. We're going to have to do that next time. I didn't realize, I know people that have done it are pretty passionate about it. I didn't realize they did all the fun things and extras as well. And I love the way you're talking about it too, because I think that's the best part about these cruises when you go on is get out there and participate, because that's what really makes it fun, I think.
And that's what we found is that I don't think I've ever played bingo anywhere other. Like it's not like I go and play bingo. I don't think I've ever played bingo here or anywhere that I've been. But on this ship, we were really invested in doing stuff, and it was in. So they do it in Azure, and one of the things that going towards sort of special services and helping sort of my family is that we sat in the back in one of the sort of enclosed booths, which was really helpful for being able to sort of enjoy bingo without feeling like you were overstimulated by being in the middle of the whole throng of people. Mm-hmm. But they play music and it really is. It's not like what you would consider a typical bingo game. It was like a party with bingo, basically.
Well, I'm sitting here looking at your picture on Skype here as we're talking, Chris, and you've got, the pumpkins around your neck. It's you and your wife. It looks like a picture in Tiana's place. This was a Halloween on the High Seas cruise. Could you talk a little bit about some of the Halloween stuff that they had and some of the things you experienced, maybe some of your favorite parts of it? Halloween
on the High Seas, the ship is decorated for Halloween. I've heard it talked about before on podcasts. So basically on the promenade deck, I think it's deck 5, they do the little stickies on the porthole windows with pumpkins and sort of Halloween stuff, and they have the Halloween tree in the atrium lobby, and they have like bunting up and decorations. It's not overwhelming, so if you didn't love Halloween, it wouldn't that wouldn't be a deterrent. Most of the Halloween stuff is is sort of secluded to one day, which for us ended up actually being Halloween. There was a bit of confusion on our cruise initially with the Facebook groups because Pirate Night was supposed to be on Halloween night. And then the thought was that Halloween was going to be the day after. So what they ended up doing was moving Pirate Night to the night before, which was the 30th, and then having Halloween on the 31st, which was really nice. On Halloween Day, they did trick-or-treating. They had the masquerade party. They had some adult-oriented stuff later in the evening. It was not overwhelming, but it was a really nice sort of Disney Halloween touch. And they had lots of Halloween merchandise also in the stores. Interesting thing that you may or may not already know is that they discount on the last cruise for last Halloween on the High Seas cruise. They discount all the Halloween merchandise by 50, 60, or 70%.
Wow.
Oh, when do they do that?
That was starting from the first day of our cruise, but they don't advertise it. They don't change the tags. My wife went to buy a zip up Halloween on the High Seas hoodie that was supposed to be $52.99, and it rang in at $24. And then we just started just grabbing stuff and going to the till because it was so reasonable. And lots of the stuff, like those little Halloween light up necklaces like we're wearing in the picture, those were 99 cents.
Oh wow. My God.
Oh, man.
So they discounted all the Halloween pins, basically anything Halloween, like the Tervis tumblers that we really wanted, they were 60% off.
Oh, don't tell me that. Holy cow. We bought one of those on the cruise for full price.
Yeah, and I actually bought one of the limited release Halloween on the High Seas pins the first night. That was the only thing they didn't discount until towards the end. So I bought a couple of those, and then they discounted them 70% by the end of the cruise, and then I felt bad for paying full price. But everything else was discounted really, really heavily, so that was really nice. We did the masquerade party. It's a couple hours. It was a lot of fun. It was a nice way to do Halloween, but they certainly don't sort of throw the Halloween in your face for the whole cruise. It's one day. Aside from the ship decorations, it's pretty much one day. They changed all the music when you're walking, to your stateroom or walking on the ship. They changed the soundtrack to a sort of a Halloween Disney soundtrack, which we loved.
Christy would have loved that.
Halloween-themed movies as well. Like Final Vision, they played Halloween Town. So you could do as much or as little Halloween stuff as you wanted. It didn't feel to me, because we did the Halloween party at California Adventure, where it felt like you had to cram stuff in. The Halloween on the ship was nice because you could do if not all of what you wanted without feeling like you had to compromise on something.
No, that makes sense, and that's good to hear because we've already talked about this on other shows. It seems like that 3-day everything's just crammed in so much. So it's good to hear that if you take those longer cruises, you can really relax and take in as much as you want. Did they have the captain on the funnel vision at night that tells the ghost stories?
Yes.
Did you see that?
I did see that. It was wonderful. We were at sea in the evening, of course, and it was it felt almost spooky on the ship at night on Halloween night because it was dark and it was a little bit, they were a little misty. And so we were on the deck watching the spooky, I think they call it spooky sea stories or something like that. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we went up, my wife wanted to go watch that. And I was like, I don't know, it'll be okay. We went up there and I think that was one of our favorite things for Halloween that we did was watching that up there. Like you said, at night, it was kind of a creepy, spooky feeling. So it was really cool.
That was great.
Well, what about the shows? Did you guys take in any of the shows, and how did that work for you guys?
We watched the first Golden Mickey's was what was on the first night, and we went to the Golden Mickey's. We enjoyed it, but we didn't like the shows as much as I thought we would. They were really well produced. They were really well done. We just preferred the movies more, and so we didn't actually go to any of the other shows. I found the same thing when we went to Disneyland and Disney World. We went to a few of the live shows, Festival of the Lion King and Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular, and they were excellent, but they just were not for us. It wasn't like a special services thing. They just didn't appeal to my wife and I as much as I thought they were going to. And so we ended up, and also everybody wanted to get into the shows. Because we had early dining, there was a ton of people that were trying to get into that, the show that was 7:30 or 8 o'clock. And so we found that we had more of the ship available to us if we didn't go to the shows. So we could go up on deck, watch Funnel Vision, or watch a movie that was playing in the other theater, or do like it was easy to do characters or to do other things while the show was going on. Because we didn't go to any of the shows, we had a much, I think, more relaxing evening on the ship.
You almost feel like you have the ship to yourself when you're kind of wandering around when everybody's at the show because it's so quiet.
Everybody's in the show where it's second seating of dining.
Right.
So we really just felt like we were the only ones on the ship in lots of places.
That's my wife and I's favorite time to go up to the Cove Cafe and just sit out and watch the sea go by and have a glass of wine after dinner and just kind of enjoy it. It's really quiet. It's really nice. So
we ended up watching Funnel Vision, I think, more than anything else. There was something really special about being out on the deck and watching a Disney movie in that environment that we just absolutely loved.
Christy, did you do that? Do you go up and watch the Funnel Vision?
Not my favorite.
Not your favorite? I enjoy it.
During the day at least. And at night, I guess I'm not anti going up to watch the Funnel Vision, but I find it to be a little crowded and a little overwhelming. To be honest.
See, and that was interesting that you say that because on our cruise at night, sometimes we were the only people on the deck.
Yeah, so at night, I could see myself doing something like that. But usually, I mean, yeah.
You guys kind of go to bed a little bit early too, don't you?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, Blake's getting older. He's going to start keeping you up later now. That's what our kids do.
He's already doing that, and I already don't like it.
Well, this cruise, we haven't really talked about the itinerary, but it's the 7-day out of San Diego. Why don't we jump into the ports a little bit? We don't have the time to cover everything, but this cruise left out of San Diego. When you have a day at sea, then you go to Cabo, Mazatlan, Puerto Vallarta, 2 days at sea back to San Diego.
Right.
Chris, why don't you talk about each one of the ports and kind of a highlight of things that you experienced or what you had planned?
So because our trip was so involved planning-wise to be able to get to the Halloween party at California Adventure and Disneyland and getting to San Diego, we didn't do any planning around the ports. We didn't book any excursions. We didn't really know. We'd been to Puerto Vallarta before, but we didn't really know what to expect, and we were just going to kind of play it by ear. So we woke up, and the ship, when it was in Cabo, it was absolutely beautiful. It's really interesting. You wake up and you're just somewhere totally different. We got off the ship in Cabo. It was the only tender port, and we were just kind of explore and hopefully try to find a beach. We wandered around and did a little bit of shopping, and then I just found someone that would take us to Madero Beach, and we just sort of spent a couple of hours on the beach. We found a spot where there was like a little restaurant on the beach, and if you ordered a drink or ordered some food, you could just kind of hang out with a little bed and an umbrella and a couple chairs. And so we had some nachos and had a couple of drinks and just hung out on the beach for a couple of hours. The spot, Cabo, was beautiful because you could see the ship out in the harbor, and the water was really warm, and it was really, really warm. It was a hot day in Cabo. So we loved that. We spent a couple hours there and just took the water taxi back to the pier and got on the ship. Mazatlan, we didn't actually get off the ship. It docks in it was very industrial looking area. It was blisteringly hot in Mazatlan, and we just kind of took that day to enjoy having the ship to ourselves, which we loved. And then Puerto Vallarta, when we woke up and went out on the deck in Puerto Vallarta, my wife looked off the deck and saw Walmart, and so we just popped off the ship and made a beeline for Puerto Vallarta Walmart. We spent a couple of hours just kind of enjoying all that Puerto Vallarta Walmart had to offer. And actually, the most interesting thing was on the way back from Walmart, where you're walking towards the cruise ship, they have this it's like a parrot sanctuary or something. It's just like right off of the path, and it was by donation, and you could just go in, and they had like dozens and dozens of parrots that were just kind of hanging out, and you could go and see them. And there was a couple that were on a perch. You could sort of feed them or whatever. And so we stopped and did that. But we found the ship was so much fun. And we had so much adventure before we got on the ship and after that we kind of took it easy in the ports. Next time I would probably make a little bit more plan. I thought it would be easier to just kind of wing it, and it wasn't. So next time I would probably plan an excursion or do a little bit more research. But we were really happy with the way that it turned out. We kind of got a taste of each of the cities without having to, cause ourselves a lot of stress or planning. So that was kind of nice.
It's kind of nice to just relax too on some of those port days. So, I know you can go both ways. Like, oh, we got to fill it up and do all these different things and everything like that. But it's kind of cool to, just wander over to Walmart and then, wander or just kind of stumble on that parrot sanctuary that you probably would never have done that. And there you guys had just a wonderful time doing that as a family. So I think that that's a great way to travel too. You don't always have to plan everything, and it's kind of cool to just wander around and explore and see what you find.
Like I said, I didn't have a lot of expectations going in. Maybe for next time I would do a little more port planning, but we had the ship was so great that it didn't even matter to us at all if we got off.
Well, so you guys end up with 2 days at sea, then you're back to San Diego. How was disembarkation? And then I've got a couple follow-up questions once we get off the ship, but how was disembarkation for you guys and getting back to the airport, I suppose?
Yeah, so disembarkation was pretty easy. Everyone, it's really funny because everyone just looked kind of exhausted the morning of disembarkation. Like everyone just looked like they'd been on like a 7-night bender kind of. There was just, people were sort of laid out everywhere. Lots of people used the French Quarter Lounge because it was close to where, close to all the restaurants that you could have breakfast in. But so it was pretty easy. Everyone was just it just felt like everyone was kind of waiting to get off, and it wasn't as hectic or as exciting as waiting to get on. It was just kind of like, okay, let's get off the ship and get going. One of the things that I found really interesting was breakfast the last morning was just kind of like, thanks for being on the ship, but get off. Like it was the least impressive meal of the entire trip, and it was so small, and so it just felt like they wanted to get everybody off as fast as possible to turn the ship around.
Which they do. Obviously, they do. It was just really surprising that experience was so much different than any other experience that we had on the ship. And also, it was surprising to me that Disney would do this, but they were dismantling all of the Halloween stuff before anybody had gotten off the ship. So they had a bunch of guys in the atrium lobby, like unbolting the tree, and they were pulling off all of the window clings and stuff like that, which I know that they're on a really tight time crunch. It took away from a little bit of that magic to see someone, taking the tree apart piece by piece while everyone's sort of standing there waiting to get off. Yeah.
That seemed very un-Disney to me, for whatever that means. But otherwise, when they call...
they had to put the Christmas tree up. That's why.
That's true. That is so true. Otherwise, when they called our boarding group, I mean, it was really orderly. It was sort of like everyone was resigned to the fact that they were getting off and it was just going to be done in a really orderly fashion. So aside from the fact that we got out of breakfast, quite early for when we were getting off the ship, like everyone was done breakfast before they even had the express walk-offs even close, before the ship was cleared or anything like that. But when our boarding group got called, we just kind of filed off the ship. The customs and security stuff was super easy. Like it felt to me like everyone was just kind of single file, just going through the paces. So the debark was really, really easy. No surprises there. It was a little hectic around the shuttle pickup areas. We were lucky because we weren't going directly to the airport. We had booked an extra day in San Diego because I wasn't sure what it was going to be like when we got off the ship and how we would feel, whether we'd be exhausted or whether we would have some energy or what. So I just booked an extra day in San Diego because it's not somewhere that we've ever been. It's not somewhere that we would probably go, and I didn't think, unless we were getting on a cruise again. So it made it way less stressful for us to get off because we didn't really have anywhere to go except our hotel.
That is easier to have it be so low-key.
Yeah, so we basically just stood outside until I called the shuttle and he was 15 minutes away and they came and picked us up and took us to our hotel. But, we were off the ship. Getting off was getting on and off was easy, but getting off was very low key. It was very easy, simple off. And aside from the fact that there were some people that obviously had to catch some flights, so that was a little hectic for them. But for us, we were just kind of hanging out until our shuttle came.
Well, kind of looking back at this cruise, Chris, this seems like it worked out really well for your family. You know, you guys, it sounds like you and your wife had some time to yourselves to kind of enjoy yourselves. You had great family time together. Your son was able to utilize the kids clubs, you know, get that independence and have some fun there. What kind of advice would you give, thinking back on it, you know, either people traveling for the first time at Disney Cruise Line, and then I was wondering, as you were talking too, is there a Facebook group for people with special needs kids, or for special services? Have you found anything like that, as far as where people kind of congregate to kind of give tips and tricks? Did you find anything like that, I guess?
We didn't find anything like that, although maybe it does exist. For us, it was, you know, my advice would be for anybody, first-time cruise or even not first-time cruise, or someone traveling with special services, is to just ask. I think lots of times we get afraid to just ask, or to let someone know what we need, or find out. Like, there's so much that they can do that you don't even know what they can do. And that was the most important part for us, is to find out what was available. Lots of cases I found with Disney, and it was, you know, even more so on the cruise, that they were there to make your cruise experience as good as it could possibly be. In fact, when I got the email from Chris, the very first thing he said was, "We are looking forward to spoiling you and your family on the Disney Wonder." And that's exactly what it felt like they did. So my advice for anybody cruising is to ask. If you want to know something or don't know something, to just ask somebody. They are always super happy to help. And I think, like, it pays for us on the Disney cruise to try things that you wouldn't normally try. My wife and son got to be contestants on the How Well Do You Know Your Family, and it was hilarious. We did karaoke. My wife and I did the feud. Like, there was so much stuff that we did that we don't normally do, playing bingo. That's not something we do, but really that helped us take advantage of the cruise and the stuff that, you know, what was on offer. And the other thing was, it helped the cruise staff get to know us. And so by the third or fourth day, we were the superstar karaoke people, or we were the people that won trivia, or my wife was the one that told an embarrassing story about herself up on stage in front of everybody in the D Lounge. And it was embarrassing. It was hilarious. So my advice would be if you don't know something, to ask, because I think lots of times people are afraid to ask and then don't get the full experience. And also to realize that Disney does want to spoil you on your cruise. They absolutely spoiled us, and let them spoil you. They will do whatever they can to make your cruise experience good, whether it's special services or isn't. They are there for you, and if you let them, they will make that cruise even better than you could have imagined it was going to be.
So what's next for you and your family, Chris? Did you guys book another cruise while you're on board? Or,
yeah, we booked the placeholder.
Okay.
We actually said, we made a pact that if we won bingo, we were just going to book another cruise and just get on the ship again. So that worked out good for everybody's work schedule, because we didn't win, so we didn't have to worry about how we were going to make that happen. But we probably would have just used whatever we won towards another cruise. For us, being from Canada, we've got a couple of extra considerations. First of all, it costs a lot to get most places where you can cruise from. So West Coast cruises are more reasonable. I love some of the itineraries out of Florida, but for 4 of us to get to Florida from Canada it's a lot of work, and it can be fairly expensive. So the cruise itself is, generally more expensive than other cruises, and totally worth it. But we have to consider the exchange rate. We have to consider that we usually have to fly in a day or two before, just because we don't want to run into any problems with, worrying about not getting on the ship. So we actually are looking at doing an 7-night Alaskan out of Vancouver, because we are a ferry ride away. So we don't have to fly. We can actually go the same day. And so we are tentatively looking at the 13th of July for that.
Oh, you'll love it.
Yeah. And so, the nice thing about Alaska is, because it's so close, that it's a lot like where we live, but we just fell in love with the Wonder. And so for us, not having to fly to Orlando or Texas or New Orleans or wherever else they're sailing out of, just makes it so that we can probably cruise more often if we choose to stay a little closer to home. So yeah, we definitely booked a placeholder, and we will definitely, I think what my wife and I decided is that for family trips, I think we will stick to cruising all the time because it's easy for everybody. It's a more managed experience, and it felt more relaxing. Her and I will go do the parks, I think, but for whenever we go family, I think we'll cruise. We just absolutely loved it.
Well, Chris, I'm going to have to get you on my team to start writing Disney to get the fantasy over here and just continue to increase the cruises on the West Coast because we're kind of feel the same way. It's nice not to have to trek all the way across the country. They do have the Hawaii cruise they're running.
They do have the Hawaii cruise, and they actually do they do the one where they go from San Diego to Vancouver and back. So yeah. We loved the Sea Days so much that I would love to do something like the Transatlantic or something like that. So, I mean, lots of Disney cruises are in our future for sure.
Well, good. Christy, any final questions, I guess, or any final thoughts on special services before we wrap up today?
No, this was great. It was great to have all this information.
Well, thank you so much, Chris, for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on and talk about it. And I just got to throw this out there. Chris, you work in IT, right?
Yes.
And I was pulling up to find out the name of the lounge on the Wonder, and it still says Promenade Lounge on it. They're going to need your services.
Oh, boy,
they are going to need your services, Chris.
Well, they definitely need his services.
So I had to throw that out there. I was just kind of looking at that. Funny. So, well, thanks again,
see,
Chris.
When you were talking, I thought you said join the team for trivia, not the team to move the fantasy. But I thought I need to get some winning trivia.
Yeah, I need to get on there. I need to find out when they're sailing to. Well, I guess you kind of said when you're sailing to Alaska. I need to jump on that Alaska cruise so I can be on a winning team because I don't think I'm going to bring too many correct answers. So good on you guys for all of that. Well, thanks so much, Chris. Just super fun talking to you. Glad you guys had just an amazing magical experience on the Wonder. And when you guys cruise to Alaska, we'd love to have you come back on and share your experiences then.
Love to.
So, well, thanks again, Chris, and we will talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Awesome.
Bye.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank Chris for coming on and sharing his and his family's experience as they sailed on the beautiful Disney Wonder out of San Diego for the first time on Halloween on the high seas, and also for taking the time to share his experiences with special services. And I want to give a shout out to the unofficial guide, Disney Cruise Line. I'm looking at the 2020 edition. And if you go in there, they've got quite a bit of information on guests who need to utilize these services. And they've got phone numbers, and it also talks about the website to go to possibly. And they state that the first thing you need to do is fill out a form and send back to them, or you can call the number as well. And that number is 407-566-3500, or a TTY number would be 407-566-7455, and I'll make sure that I put that in the show notes down below as well if you wanted to look for it there. So just a lot of information out there for people with disabilities, people with mobility issues, and also with people traveling with autism. There's a whole article in it as well. President from the Autism Science Foundation, and she talks about her experience sailing with Disney Cruise Line as well. So if you don't actually own this guide, you can always go over to Amazon and buy it, or any of your local booksellers. And I also want to put a shout out to the library. Just go to your local library and take a look for it as well. So a lot of good information in there for those of you who may need to utilize these services. So between now and our next show, if you would like to reach out to us, you can do so at steve@dclpodcast.com. That's me. And if you'd like to come on and share your experiences traveling with Disney Cruise Line, Adventures by Disney, or even Run Disney, we would love to have you come on, and we will get you scheduled and set up for a show as soon as we can. I'd also like to give a shout out for several of you who've recently gone over to iTunes and left us a review. We really do appreciate that. We are going to give you a little bit more of a shout out when Chris and Christy and I do a show together, and just kind of thank each and every one of you for going there and doing that. It helps us get the show known in the podcast community, helps us grow the show, and helps others find the show as well. So between now and our next show, if you are heading out on your next adventure, all of us here at the DCL Podcast would like to wish you fair winds and safe travels as you head out on that next vacation. Once again, thanks for coming back and taking a listen, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast. The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.